you received a word about a time frame that's like matches the time frame of Joseph. 7 years of plenty, 7 years of famine, during which time we need to build our Goshen. Now, when I heard you preach that message, I about came out of my skin, because I've literally been working on building a physical Goshen, not even just a spiritual Goshen, but one in the natural, a physical Goshen here as part of our move from Arizona to Florida, and Dog the Bounty Hunter and his wife Francie coming with us. That's what we're in the process of doing, is building a Goshen, because I also have been getting words about a upcoming and impending famine in the world, not just the land, but in the world. But I didn't know the timing. Tell us what God has been telling you about that, and let's unpack it.
Well, the prophetic word started actually with a message that came to me in 2020. The Lord said, tell them you have 9 years left. And that 9 years left began from 2021. And now we're in the 7th year of that 9-year period between 2023 and 2030. And I believe that after 2030, the world is going to change dramatically. And I'm not just talking about the famine that is synonymous with agrarian culture, food, farming, water, all of those things. I'm talking about a famine of credit, a famine of banking, a famine of heating, lighting, electricity. And the Lord spoke to me that what is considered money is going to go through another revolution. We've had those revolutions throughout history, so nothing's new under the sun. You know, we had the Bretton Woods Treaty, where you all in America took the dollar off the gold standard, changing what money meant forever. And now money means dollars around the world. I believe we're shifting into 2030 into another season of what does money look like. And around the world, that's going to be different for different places. You know, I don't just believe that we're called to build Goshen. I believe certain political figures and government leaders are going to build Goshen as well.
Okay.
I believe there are going to be nations that are going to talk about backing their currency by gold and silver as a way of transferring wealth back to their nations.
Yeah.
I believe we're going to see nations that were considered fallen nations rise, and nations that are now considered risen nations fall. And then there's going to be complexity in between that, because in that complexity, like for instance for America, I believe we're going to see states rise and states fall. So it's not going to just be a global picture or a continental picture. Even within that continent, it's not going to be as simple as just that nation has fallen. It's going to be which states within that nation are actually rising up during that time as well. And so just like in Joseph's day and in the day of Moses, there's a move to build the Goshen. And what does Goshen look like? Goshen looks like either governments partnering with prophets, pharaohs, or who don't know the Lord, partnering with those specific people that God has raised in the earth. And I do believe there's going to be a shift of prophets moving into those spaces strategically, leadership positions in the earth that are going to give nations strategies to be Goshen states, Goshen countries, Goshen regions, all of those things. But then there's the other one where I believe God's going to entrust people to build their own Goshens personally as well. And that looks like even the woman who was a widow, her and her son were about to be taken by the creditors. And the prophet said, what do you have in your house? And that was a Goshen for a period of famine within the nation, and her and her child were going to live happily on the rest of it. And so there's going to be supernatural supply, there's going to be all sorts.
The individual thing, wow, this is such a spectrum that is so awesome for everybody watching, because you see, even with the woman that had the multiplication of the oil that Tomi was just talking about, she was an individual that God individually provided for during a deep time of famine. So you could be an individual and you don't have a governmental level of authority or anointing or influence, and God will still can create a Goshen for you within your home. But then, as you said, there's also the governmental level of that happening for states and things like that. That should give a lot of encouragement to people that if they can't go and buy land or, build an agricultural Goshen with their own wells or fields or water, that they can individually expect and put their faith on God creating a Goshen for them right in their apartment or their little home,
Yes, absolutely. And the thing is, not everybody's going to build a Goshen, but to those who hear particularly this kind of message, there can be a feeling of incompetence or a feeling of I'm not proficient in understanding the markets or how they work. I think in this next 7 years, we're going to go back to the parable of the wise virgins and the foolish virgins. Mm-hmm. And the hallmark of the foolish is that they are going to stay with foolish people. Mm. And the hallmark of the wise is that they are going to stay with wise people. And so actually, my strongest prophetic guidance to your audience during this time, Katie, is that they begin to deliberately choose friends instead of making them. Mm. And in choosing them, there is a divine strategy. Ruth was not considered intelligent or educated. She was a Moabite. She was cut off. She was ostracized. Her community were just completely taken out of the community of Israel. But in the midst of that, she understood that if I can associate my life with somebody wise, she was in a nexus between a very wise woman and a very foolish one. Orpah is a very significant prophetic word for the next 7 years because Orpah means stubborn. It's like when it says God wanted to take the children of Israel out of Egypt, but then the people complained and grumbled because they were Orpah, which means stiff-necked. Mm. And so there is an Orpah friendship that we all have. We all have those friends that don't want to change. They talk about change, but they don't want change.
And they never do.
They even give all, and they never do. And they even give all the symptoms of wanting life to get better, but they always live in someday and one day. They never actually progress beyond emotion to actual motion. And that's what Orpah did. She kissed Ruth. She kissed Naomi. They both said, we'll go with you, which is interesting. They both kissed and they both wept, but Orpah returned. Her emotion didn't actually lead to motion. And so don't be deceived by people who show the same feelings about something as you. Mm. It's really about the people who have the actions to follow through as well.
Wow.
And the operative word is Ruth clave to Naomi. The only other time that word is used is in marriage. So wow. Ruth literally committed her life till death do her part to eternal friendships. And I believe there are seasonal friends, but in these next 7 years, God actually wants us to connect us with lifetime friends. He wants to connect us with people who where they die, will die. Where they live, will live, and there will be buried. There's something happening now that we're no longer having scaffolding company and scaffolding staff. God is actually connecting us with people who are there for the long haul. And so I always say this, you have to be ruthless to be Ruth. Because Orpah, you grew up with her, you went to the same school together, you did each other's hair, you dated the same boyfriends, married the same people, read the same magazines. But when it's time for change, Orpah has to go. And you cannot allow sentiment, and this is what a lot of people do. They allow sentiment to bring people on the journey that don't qualify for the season. And there's a significant place in that. And I really believe that your friends will change your prophetic trajectory in the next 7 years. It will dramatically shift it. And I look at that, the best template is Abraham. Abraham brings Lot with him, even though God told him to move away from everybody. We're all like this. In a world where everything is changing, we long for the one thing that doesn't change. We're human beings by nature, so we want to take on a memento, a souvenir, somebody with us who still reminds us of home, who still reminds us of, mama's fresh bread and all of those wonderful things. And Lot was probably that to Abraham. Along the journey, you'll see Abraham was not blessed until he let go of Lot. It was when he let go of Lot, God said, now lift up your eyes and see.
Wow.
Because Lot means to veil.
Wow.
And so some of your friends are veiling you from the very place God's trying to take you to, which in this case is Goshen. Wow. And so there's a massive deliverance that's taking place where God is actually delivering us from bad people and good people. Lot was righteous. It was called righteous Lot. He was good people. But God will deliver you from bad people and good people to get you to Goshen.
Wow.
And deliver you to the people who can take you there.
I like how you said that Ruth cleaved to Naomi, and that is only used in the sense of marriage. That's how deep, guys, this covenant has to be as we walk through. I mean, the 7 years have started. It starts in 2023. We've begun, and the 7 years of plenty. I know it doesn't seem like plenty right now, and I want you to address that after I finish this little part, because it doesn't seem like plenty right now, but it is plenty compared to what's coming after that, at the 7 years afterwards. But we've got to now pray into who is our Ruth, who is our Naomi. The Ruths need the wisdom and the authority and the influence of the Naomis, and the Naomis need the youth and exuberance and vigor and vitality and fire of the Ruths. And Ruth, when she cleaved to Naomi, Naomi led her with her wisdom through meeting her Boaz. Naomi led her out of Moab back to Jerusalem, and then walked her through meeting her Boaz, but also Ruth committed to an absolute covenant of listening to her wisdom and serving her with a whole heart. She went out every day and gleaned the fields. Naomi told her what fields to go into and to glean, but Ruth actually did the labor. I'm not saying that Naomi wouldn't have done the labor. I'm sure she was taking care of her home too, but the home for both of them. But there is a level of serving that we haven't seen for a while, because people are out for their own thing now. There has to be I feel there's a collective unity of a co-op of people that come together with in one accord to have one objective that the Lord is putting on their plate accomplished. And there's going to have to be a uniting and a deep covenant, a cleaving and a serving in that area. Do you feel the same?
I generally do. I believe that your trajectory is going to be determined by your company. Yeah. And so wherever you're going in life for the next 7 years, I believe that this year is going to be the year that you strategically adopt new friends and let go of old ones. Yeah. And by friends, I mean those that can wound you. We don't have enough people around us that can wound us. The Bible says, faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. We call friends today what God calls cheerleaders. People around us who make us feel comfortable where we are, cheer on our stupid decisions, give us really silly advice about men. And that was Orpah. I bet Orpah just gave Ruth the dumbest advice about men and all this stuff. But we need people who are like Naomi, people who have a marah to them, people who have known what it means for the Almighty to deal bitterly with them as well. Yeah. People who can have that balance of, I've had pain and joy, I've had loss and celebration, because those people's experiences can really teach us more than, the young friends that we're listening to in our lives. God, throughout history, has always connected people with destiny helpers, because in the midst of that, something in you that was dead comes alive. Best, again, template for this would be Mary, who just found out she's pregnant without a husband, outside wedlock. And God did it, but how do you even explain that? What do you tell people? The Holy Spirit made me pregnant. There's no words for that. So her only comfort was in Elizabeth, who, when she got around her, the baby leapt.
Yeah.
And so I always tell people, you find your company by whether or not that thing in you leaps again when you get around them.
That's really good.
If nothing leaps in you, they're not the right one.
Wow. See, good. Do you hear that, guys? That is a sign to you. You always think, is this the person that I should yoke to? Is this an employee that I should bring on to staff? Is this the man or the woman that is my spouse? There will be a leaping in your spirit. Let's say you're being demonically swarmed. You can't hear well in the season because the enemy is trying to oppress your ability to sense and to pick up and to hear the voice of the Lord, his leading and his insight through scripture. Maybe you're battling with that right now. And if you are, chat that in right now. Say, I'm battling with it. I'm battling with it. Well, rely on the Spirit to resonate and to leap inside of you with the acknowledgement that this person that you're around right now is someone that you want to yoke yourself with to in a deep covenant for what's happening in the earth. Again, I want to just say, you're saying that we are beginning the 7-year cycle now, correct?
Yes.
Let's talk about those cycles. Yeah.
So we're beginning, I believe we're stepping into a 7-year cycle. And the Lord said these next 7 years will be the NASA years. And NASA is, I know it's aeronautics, space, and whatever in America. I can't remember the last word for that. But it actually comes from the Hebrew word meaning to test. When the Lord wanted to give Abraham prosperity, he took him through a NASA, a test, and he told him to sacrifice his son. And the sad thing is about that, I think a lot of people this year will feel like they've sacrificed a lot, especially during COVID.
Yeah.
But actually, Abraham in the previous chapter had already sacrificed Ishmael. And so it would feel offensive if just a moment later you're asking him to now offer up a son when he's already offered up a son. But the challenge here was actually the son that thou lovest, the thing that you love the most.
Yeah.
The thing that you're calling a harvest, God is calling a seed. And God's like, I need to see if you are possessive. Because the possessive will not possess in this next year.
Wow.
And so there has to be a willingness. If your possessions possess you, you're possessed. That's what I always like to tell people. Yeah. Possessions possess you, you're possessed.
Wow.
And that was the rich ruler. His possessions possessed him. He was possessed. And so there are possessed people. And God was trying to see, can I NASA him? The Lord nassed Abraham to see what was in his heart. Give me that boy. He gave him, stop. Now I'm going to become your provider. Wow. I'm going to become to you. And so this is going to be a year of the knowing Jireh. But not everyone's going to know Jireh because not everyone is going to pass the NASA. Yeah. The NASA is for those who will build the Goshen on the other side.
Wow.
And so people are going to hear God give them instructions like give away your car, like not that car, the one you love.
Yeah, right.
Give up that dress, not the secondhand one, the one you just bought yesterday.
Yeah, right. Wow.
People are going to hear God speak these really challenging words, and they'll have a choice to harden their heart and say, nah, wow. Surely I've already sacrificed all my Ishmaels. God cannot be asking me to do this now. And yet God will challenge us in that way because he needs to see if we can handle the abundance that's coming. Because the abundance that's coming, the Lord said to me, is going to be nation debt cancellation wealth that God is going to bestow on several people within the body within the next 7. And it's not going to be the masses again. It's why I'm doing a training on Goshen, because it's not going to be the masses. It's going to be people who hear the Lord say, leave this 7-figure sum job, step down. I know you're the CEO and they're about to promote you to partner, but step down and go and do this.
Right.
It's those who their spouses are going to say, you're crazy. What are you thinking? What are you doing? Why this state? Why this county? Oh, don't you know about this? And they're going to just obey the Lord regardless. And those are the people that are going to pass the test that Jireh is going to make himself known to.
Okay, did you hear that, guys? And look, don't think that I would ever back something up or teach something that I wasn't doing myself. At least I would believe and hope and pray that I would have the grace to do that. And that's what we're going through now. I mean, the Lord has had us give up everything. We left our beautiful home in Arizona and to come down here and to live in a house where the mattress is on the floor and there's mold in the shower and the house is, not a beautiful house like I'm used to. And Dog and Francie did the same thing. They gave up their 6,000 square foot mansion to live in an RV on my land. Now, these things aren't said to boast, so don't hear me wrong, but hear that we are all going to be called to this test of will we not be possessed by our possessions, because God has a plan for us and we must let go of all these things. Tomi, even my husband said I was nuts. You said, my husband is like, what are we doing this? Oh my gosh, but there he is. He's out working the land here for our building our Goshen. He's out there with the hoe and the shovel and the chainsaw and everything else working the land. So God bless the hubby.